Hey everyone, it's Theo from Spectrum Gardening. So today we're going to be putting in the supports for our tomato plants. I'm sure most of you have seen these cages being sold in either big box stores or garden centers. And you know what? They're great to use by themselves for either smaller plants, determinate varieties, peppers, or even eggplant. However, personally, we've found that indeterminate plants grow so big and they have so much fruit on them that they quickly outgrow the tomato cages and they need a bit more support. So we use the tomato cages in conjunction with rebar. So you can get rubber coated rebar from some big box stores and also some garden centers. But theirs typically is 1/2 inch. And we went to our local rebar yard and we got 5/8 rebar. And yeah, ours is a little rusty. It doesn't look so nice, but you know what? The price point was quite a bit cheaper than going to a nursery. And plus we were able to get some thicker ones. So they are a bit rusty. So typically when we handle them, we wear gloves, or else we get kind of rust on our hands, like that. It's not a big deal. Most of the time of the year, they're covered by tomato plants and they're covered by vines, so we don't really see them. We could paint them black or something like that, but to be honest, we can't be bothered. I have plans later on this year to build a tea trellis in all my garden beds. And what I mean by a tea trellis is I'm gonna have a 2-foot piece come up here, and then I'm gonna have a 4-foot piece come across there where I dug those lines. It's gonna look like a capital T. I'm gonna build one there and build one here. I'm gonna build another one there. And then I'm gonna build just support legs over there. And then I'm gonna have overhead horizontal pieces going across all of them. So it's gonna be like one connected arbor. So I wanna talk about that just for a quick second. Why would I wanna build a tea trellis like that versus just having something like that? Well, to be honest, that there is 6 feet, 6 horizontal feet in the garden space. And as much as it's nice to have vertical growing space, eating up 6 horizontal feet in a garden bed for me is a waste of space. It just really is. So once I build these tea trellises, they're only going to take up 2 feet going this way in the garden bed. That's it. And then they're going to take up across here. And it's going to be very minimal, but I'm going to be getting a lot more. I'm going to be able to grow the same amount of veggies in a lot less space, because it's going to be 2 feet this way and 4 feet that way. So it's still going to be 6 horizontal feet. It's just going to be in a smaller footprint. So what I've done now is I've spaced out my rebar. I'm growing them 18 inch on centers. And I know what some people might say, that's way too close for indeterminate tomatoes. And you know what? They'd probably be right. Typically you'd want to space them around 2 to 2.5 feet apart for trimming and airflow and things like that. But I grow them 18 inch on centers because that's what I found that works for me. And I just trim up my plants. I just prune them back. I prune them back hard when needed. So I've kind of spaced out my rebar a little bit, anticipating I'll be building the trellises this year. If I do build them before I get my tomatoes in, which I doubt it is, I will take out this one, that one, and that one. And then I'll grow my tomatoes up the actual trellis. And if we look over here, I've spaced out the rebar over here. So I'm going to be using a post pounder to put them in, and that's that guy right there. So why would I want to use a post pounder on rebar as opposed to just jamming it in the ground? Well, earlier we explained how indeterminate tomatoes get so heavy and so tall, so they really need the support. And I'll show you in a moment why I use a post pounder. This piece of rebar, I just kind of jammed into the ground and I didn't really pound it. And you can see how I can turn it like that. And you can see how much play is on it like that. This one over here, I pounded it with a post pounder and I can't turn it so much, and there's not so much play, and it's gonna be way sturdier for the actual plant. I had a friend come over and help me with the 12-foot pieces of rebar after putting the 8-foot ones by myself. So let's take a look at everything. I've kept all my tomatoes in the back of these two beds here. The reason for that is because the sun comes in this way first, and then it hits the back of the bed at the end. I'm planning to put some low growing veggies here to take advantage of the sun coming in first, and I don't want them shaded out by my taller tomato plants in the back. Earlier in the video, I talked about tomato cages versus rebar, and we do use tomato cages for our determinate plants, but the thing is we put them around our rebar. So I would have my rebar in, as you can see here, and then I would actually plant my tomato first, and then I would put the cage over the rebar. And the reason for that is because we don't train our determinate tomatoes to one stem. We just kind of let them grow. And if need be, we will tie them to the rebar or we'll tie them to the cage. And what we found is even when we get a super heavy plant of a determinate tomato, even if it falls over like that with a cage, the rebar is going to catch it and it's going to hold it up. That's what we found that works best for us, because we found the cages just aren't strong enough to hold up the plants. We also use the same sort of system for indeterminate plants. However, our main goal on the indeterminate plants is to keep them pruned to one stem. And we try to keep them tied to the pieces of rebar in the middle of the tomato cage. However, that doesn't always work out because, as we all know, life happens or they just grow too darn fast. So what we do in that case, when we have multiple leaders growing, we'll actually tie them to the tomato cages, and we'll use the tomato cages kind of as trellis support for our big branching vines. Thanks for watching. And of course, if you found this video interesting or if you liked it, give us a thumbs up. And if you would like to see more project videos or more how-tos, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below.